Chapter 2. The room was full of people. A band played in the corner of a dance floor, while women wearing exquisite dresses were being spun around by men in expensive suits. Other impeccably dressed guests stood in small groups around the room. The sound of their laughing voices could be heard above the music. No one was familiar. Aliyah took an uncertain step further into the room. As she did, everything went quiet, and all eyes turned to stare at where she stood. Aliyah had never felt as self-conscious as she did at that moment. She took a step backwards. Before she could get any further, Sir Caldric dispatched himself from where he had been talking to a group of men by a massive stone fireplace. He prowled towards her. The fire's heat did nothing to warm the cold pit of dread that formed in Aliyah's stomach as his predatory gaze roamed over her exposed body. With an effort, she suppressed a shudder and glanced around the room. A group of women near her age stood to her left. She met their gaze, and they stared back with animosity. "My dear, you look ravishing." Sir Caldric's voice pulled her attention from the women, and she turned to find him standing directly in front of her. His gaze roamed up and down her body. Aliyah's skin crawled at the compliment. Wishing her dress contained more fabric, she found herself saying, "I was hoping we might get to know each other over a quiet dinner. I was not expecting so many others. Whatever is the cause of this celebration?" "Why, it is our engagement party." Sir Caldric motioned around the room as if that fact were obvious. "And you, Aliyah, are the guest of honor." The heat of embarrassment rushed to her face as he proffered his arm. Feeling repulsed about being in such close proximity to him, she reached out with shaking hands. Faster than she could blink, he grabbed her arm and yanked it to his, holding it tight enough to hurt. She grimaced and bit back a cry. She did not miss his look of innate joy in seeing her pain. He towed her along beside him up to a round dais at the far side of the room. Aliyah had to run to keep up. Whispers of "Who's that?" and "A Myralian!" followed them as those in attendance stood expectantly and waited for whatever announcement Sir Caldric was sure to make. He did not disappoint. "My friends," he began, his nasal voice filling the chamber, "in our fight against Myral, it is with immense pleasure that I announce our newest strategy for fighting those heathens. They stole magic from us in the past, but now we will reclaim what is rightfully ours." He paused, looking each attendee in the eye. The anticipation in the room was palpable. "I have found myself a Wavani." He let the last word hang in the air as he motioned toward Aliyah, standing next to him. An excited buzz filled the chamber as the audience turned to whisper among themselves. "Prove it!" a male voice yelled from the crowd. Aliyah spotted the owner of the voice. A tall, middle-aged man standing next to a pale woman in all white. Both wore skeptical expressions. Sir Caldric narrowed his eyes at the man as he took a decorative knife out of the sheath at his side. Before she had a chance to react, he held Aliyah's arm to a straight position and brought the knife down on her arm hard. Aliyah struggled to no avail. The metal was cold as it bit into her skin, and she unleashed a scream. The knife made its path from the inside crease of her elbow halfway down to her wrist. Tears streamed as Aliyah sobbed from the unexpected pain. No one in the audience moved. Sir Caldric smiled wider as he took a step towards her and held a small cup to the wound to collect her blood. Aliyah stared in mute horror as he pulled the cup to his lips and threw back the contents. An iridescent aura began to emanate off of him before it sunk into his skin. He opened his eyes wide and stared at the crowd. A woman in the audience gasped. "His eyes! Look at his eyes!" someone in the crowd shouted. Turning her head, she looked up at Sir Caldric. His pale blue eyes were now flecked with prominent gold. The gaze he gave her was predatory as he began to address the crowd. "With a Wavani on our side, we shall unlock the magic forbidden to us by those so long ago. We can take back what is ours and extinguish those heathen Myralians." Thunderous applause echoed around the chamber. He paused until it died down. "Think it over, my friends. I should like to meet with you individually over the next few weeks to discuss the benefits of swearing fealty to me. Until then, drink up and think of the rewards we shall reap by conquering Myral." With nothing more to say, he turned on his heels as he reached for Aliyah's uncut arm. She resisted the urge to cry out as he dragged her off the stage behind him. The cheers of his supporters echoed in the chamber. Warm sunlight danced behind Aliyah's closed eyelids. She stirred, and the events of the prior day shoved her into consciousness. As she opened her eyes, a piercing pain spliced through her brain, and she held back the urge to vomit. She breathed slow, deep breaths and waited for the world to right itself. What had been in those drinks last night? She tried to remember the party, but everything was fuzzy after Sir Caldric's speech. Straining, she recalled a servant bringing her a wrap for her arm, only after one of the many guests commented to Sir Caldric on how it was such a waste to let a dress like that get all bloodied up. She had not missed the sly smile Sir Caldric responded with, or the possessive way he hauled her around the rest of the party after. She had not been allowed to talk. He had done all the talking for her. The few times anyone addressed her, he had cut in and told them she didn't speak Gralanthian. She had almost rolled her eyes at that, but thought better of it when he squeezed her bandaged arm hard enough to bruise. A servant walking by offered her a drink, and she downed the contents without hesitation, grateful for something to do. The liquid burned going down, but left her feeling lightheaded and... No wonder I was able to get away with so many things after Aunt Matilda had been drinking. A smile tugged at her lips at the thought, but the urge to vomit came back vigorously. She didn't make it to the washroom before the contents of her stomach surged back up and soiled one of the blue rugs. Miss, are you all right?" Lena's voice sounded far away, and Aliyah jerked as the woman squatted next to her. Another surge made its way onto the blue rug when she opened her mouth to respond. "It's all right, miss. It's only a rug. Nothing we haven't cleaned before." She patted Aliyah's back as the last of the contents made their appearance. There, miss." Aliyah covered her eyes with her hand as she waited for the world to stop spinning. When she thought she was strong enough to stand, she allowed Lena to help her off the ground. She took a step toward the bed when Lena stopped her. "Now, let's get you out of your clothes and into something more comfortable." Aliyah realized she was still wearing the awful dress from the night before. Blood from her arm crusted one side of it, mingling with the fresh vomit. The sight almost made her sick for a second time, and she had to force her eyes to look anywhere else as Lena led her to the washroom. Letting Lena help her out of her dress and into her sleeping gown was hard. The world still spun, and Aliyah had to vomit one more time, this time in the privy, before she let Lena lead her back to the bed. "You rest. Drink some water. I will be back in a while to check on you and see if you need anything else." Lena gave her a sympathetic smile as she pulled the curtains closed and submerged the room in darkness. With quiet steps, she walked towards the door. "Lena?" Aliyah's voice was hoarse, but she was thankful when Lena's silhouetted form paused in the doorway. "Thank you for your help. It has been a long time since someone has helped me in any way." Lena went rigid. In a voice just above a whisper, she responded, "It has been a long time since there has been someone to help, miss." Aliyah did not say a word as the older woman shut the door and left, her words giving Aliyah something to contemplate.